This is a Heart and Hand production.
Hello and welcome to the Rangers Prism with me, Martin and Adam, catching up in all things Rangers land in the present, looking ahead to the future, and maybe at the end we look back into the history books as well. Hope you're well, Adam. Hopefully slightly more cheer than last week's conversation.
Yeah, judging by the viewing figures, misery loves company. So I think thank you all for viewing. Hopefully it'll be the same again. Now things are a little bit cheerier. But yeah, I'm doing okay, thank you.
Good man, good man. Couple of games, 2 cup games to discuss. Different, but different in a way that maybe we both maybe kind of expected life would be like in terms of the opposition and the format, the competition. So let's take Sunday first. Does the scoreline flatter us a little, or overall, is that a fair summary of what we did? Because there were moments of concern, but there were also moments of, some promise. Clearly, the debut of Penrice being one of the main drivers in that. But what are your thoughts overall on a very much needed win?
I think I've certainly got into the habit over the last 5 years of analysing Rangers games rather than analysing a football game. And I think we give ourselves a lot of cliches, well-worn tropes for Rangers that don't necessarily apply outside. Of course, we're more critical, more analytical about our own club. We watch every single minute of those games and everything round about it, rather than just enjoying Arsenal versus Brighton on a Sunday. So you're going to be more critical and then probably give more praise as well. So no, I think that was well deserved. I think I was really happy with the variety of goals that we scored. Yes, looking at it critically, the first goal, St Mirren need to do better there for sure defensively. However, these are the sclaffs that we never really seem to get on. Either we never get on the right side of that, and I sort of hate that. We don't put ourselves in the position to get on the right side of those things a lot. So there's two sides to every coin. I think we did well in that game. There were moments for sure, particularly in the first half, where it looked like we might be in for a bit of a rocky day. But credit to the team, they pulled it together. And last night and Sunday, we seen a team come out after half time and sort of take control of the game a little bit, which is new, certainly. And I quite enjoyed that. So we can obviously talk about the themes there. But yeah, for sure, I thought it was good. Penrice was great. As we know, just being Scottish is not enough. Players that can actually play a bit to have that quality, have pace are what we're looking for. So he certainly fits the bill. In that respect, works quite well with Gassama. I think that's a nice partnership there. And that is doing good. Really keen to get a bit of consistency of selection. So if Penrice is able to come in and fill that gap with two Romans being out for a bit, and then we'll see what happens after that. And I think it's good to have that locked down, short term or not.
It's interesting you mentioned the post halftime reset, control, and renewed purpose, and that's something new. I don't get that personally. I think I've seen far too often. Well, certainly if we're getting in behind or we haven't played well in the first half, from Gerrard all the way through, it's too often this Rangers team has needed a reset for Daddy to tell them what to do, and then they have looked a lot better. My issue is how often in game have we been able to kind of change momentum and change things around, stem the tide kind of thing. It's starting games in general has been more, I think, my issue in the past. Second halves have been, I've seen that quite a few times. So that's an interesting observation. But last night, again, sticky points, but also moments of, all right, this looks a wee bit more fluid. Was this not always just inevitably going to be the case with such a change in direction, turnover of players, blah, blah, blah?
Yeah, so I think last night was, for better or worse, last night was more what I expected to happen right away with Derek McInnes. I have to say, you come in, get yourself relatively solid, don't give up many chances, don't offer huge amounts in the midfield, and try and get yourself on the right side of margins, percentages in the opposition box. I doubted whether we would see consistent free-flowing football. Was really happy with the weekend that we did see some of that. But I thought more like what we would expect. More last night was probably more like what we should have expected early doors, which is great. I think it needs. I don't think it's good enough at all, and I don't think that will be good enough longer term. But the manager himself said last night we need attacking quality to come in and make a difference, and it's a back to basics approach. I am absolutely all for it. Derek McInnes was my choice to come in for precisely this reason. If we bring someone in, who can get us stable, stop us shipping silly goals for absolutely no reason, and then rely on us having better players than everyone else in the league in the final third, then I think we'll do fairly well. I think we should have better players in the final third than the vast majority of teams in the league. Therefore, it stands to reason that we would do well. What we've tried to do is get ourselves caught between so many different ideals. And shall we do this? Shall we do a back three in this game? Shall we play this person? We can't play two. We can't play two defensive midfielders in this game. Can we play two forwards? What will happen? All of that nonsense is not doing us any favours at all, because we end up where we've ended up in the last 4 years, which is just going around in circles, not really knowing who's a good player and who isn't in the team, whether they're being hidden by something else, whether there's various issues that we've got, whether someone's head's gone or someone can't play in this game. Stability is the name of the game. If we see games like last night more often than not, while the attacking players are getting up to speed, then great. Do I think it is going to be something that we should see for 2, 3, 5 years? Probably not. I'd like it to be a little bit more expansive, but let's walk before we can run.
Do you think he's settling down as a manager and just finding his groove, maybe trusting his instincts a wee bit more? Because you're absolutely right, he seemed all over the place, trying to do different things, even within a game, which is not something you kind of associate with Derek McInnes at all. And maybe he's just trusting his instinct a wee bit more. 2 wins help, obviously, but even his demeanour and pointed messages are just maybe a sign of a manager maybe just in a little bit more control than he was a couple of weeks ago.
I think so, yeah. I like the post-match comments last night, I have to say. He nailed quite a lot of what we as fans think. So yeah, I think so. Look, it's only natural. This is this whole thing about he has been here before, knows the league, knows the club. Until you're actually in there, standing on the touchline, and it's your gig, then everybody is going to need a settling period. Everybody is going to need it, because it's new for everybody that we've hired, with the exception of 1 or 2 in the past. But yeah, I think it probably is, and I think we're starting to see that. I like the 4-3-3. I think Rangers should always play 3 central midfielders, particularly when central midfield has been an issue for 5 years. I think let's not be clever about it. Let's not try and do anything outside of the box. If you play 3 midfielders, you are very rarely going to get overrun in there in terms of bodies. That gives you a solid base that allows you to then go. Yes, you might lose something in the final third, but we've not really had huge amounts in the final third anyway. So I'd rather make sure that things are solid and we can build on it, rather than trying to build on something that we don't fully trust.
I agree with the 4-3-3. How comfortable do you think the manager is with that? And indeed, the captain, who doesn't really fit that bill at all, no?
Yeah. I've said this so many times in the past, but I would pay insane amounts of money if someone would release a documentary, warts and all, of a football club, our football club probably, but here is our plan when the last game finishes at the end of the season. Here's what we are aiming for. Here's our top 3 players in each position. Here's how we want to play. Here's the backups for that. Here's the manager that we want. Seeing that plan day by day through until the transfer window shuts, I would be fascinated to see how those things change and how those things align, because I bet some of the things that we think are miles off, some of the things that we assign to managers, players, etc., are miles off, and we only see 10-20% of reality. I'd pay good money for that. However, in this instance, I think it is just as the manager said, and it's what we've said me and you personally for years. Do we think in the modern game, when we're playing one up front, Lawrence Shankland is going to be playing every single week for Rangers? I don't think so, and I don't think that's a negative personally per se. Chris Boyd wasn't playing one up front on his own 20 years ago in a time that you might think there was more value in those type of strikers, or you could work around those type of strikers. Lawrence Shankland is a good goal scorer, absolutely. Lawrence Shankland can create for other people. Lawrence Shankland can't create goals on his own. Therefore, in a team that has struggled with that for years, I just didn't see that as a sure thing. I didn't understand how that was possibly a thing. Would I have signed Lawrence Shankland? Absolutely, because there will be games that we just spoke about it earlier on this show. There will be games where we need someone who, when the ball falls to you within the posts, you're going to bury it more often than not. That is needed. Rangers would have had more trophies in the last 5 years if we just had someone like that who could do that in those minutes, in those key moments. But starting all the time, no. The club captain thing, I don't put massive amounts of sway in it at all. On the face of it, I think certainly by the way the first couple of games went, Lawrence Shankland as captain and Dan Neil as vice captain, seems to me like it's more about the dressing room culture and organising things in there rather than what the manager had been wanting to do. Last night, I think personally, I thought Dan Neil was ropey in the first half an hour, maybe most of the first half. I thought he wasn't really helped by the centre halves. But I think that's a bit of a catch-22. Seen a lot of moans about Fernandez trying to hold on to the ball. Not so many moans, and there never is any moans about the fact that nobody is moving off the ball to allow him to actually play. He's not going to play a pass through to someone who can't receive it back to goal, say Chukwani, for example, or Nico Raskin, who can't receive it and spin. He's not going to play it to them just to get it back because nothing happens there. He needs players to move, and I thought we struggled with that in the first half. In the second half, when we started going more centrally, you've seen Dan Neil moving, Dragovic trying to drop in, Sterling even getting a little bit further forward, Yokota coming a little bit back to try and change the avenues of attack. I thought things looked a little better, and I think Dan Neil was central to that. The goal is a really good example. I think most centre midfielders that we have just now will bring that ball in and try and shoot when they're terrible at it. Outside of Dragojevic, who actually looks like he can hit a ball. But Dan Neil
harder than 10 miles an hour anyway.
Yes, Dan Neil showed that little bit of is it ingenuity? Is it guile? Is it just a bit of intelligence? I don't know. Just to say, I'm going to loft this into the back post. Now he's lofting it into someone who is tiny in terms of Yokota, but again, you put it in those areas, things can happen. So I'm not saying that we'll expect that from Dan Neil every time, but I enjoyed that. Seeing a central midfielder do something like that looked like something that we would need. So yeah, I think it is a tricky thing to get right. I think there's lots of decisions that maybe happen, whether they're on the pitch or off the pitch, with regard to captaincies and all that sort of stuff. But as the manager said the other day, Lawrence Shankland is too good a player, in his words, to really struggle with it. I think he seems like quite a strong character as well, mentally. So I don't think it will be a huge issue. I think there'll be an awareness that it's a team game, and we don't need to be saying X player is dropped and that means he will never be picked. I think that's probably not going to be the case.
Yeah, the Daniel thing is getting caught in the weather, really. Just the general clouds around the place. I think just a little over the top. Although it's absolutely fair to say that first half performance by Manny was just nothing was happening. But we'll see how that develops. A few players in the firing line. Adam, Manny Fernandez, probably the biggest one in more ways than one. What are your thoughts on his performance compared to last year? I think there's a lot of rewriting of history going on. There's a lot of talk that he'll go to Germany. He would be another player that would not surprise me leaving here and going on to have a very fine career somewhere else. Is he absolutely screwed in and focused properly? No, I don't think something that's fairly obvious. Are we getting the best out of his talent at the moment? No. But I again go back to senior players lacking around that team to bring the tide up and bring players up with them and keep people sharp on match day, but in Auchenhowie as well every single day. And I think that's where we're still missing what I want really through the centre of the team, and I don't really think that's going to happen. But that's one of the consequences of that, I think. Your thoughts on him and the general kind of conversation?
Yeah, I think we're seeing a player who, in actual terms, is probably 21 years old in terms of experience. I think the season before he came to us was his breakout season at Peterborough. So I don't think it's much of a surprise that these players will have these dips. I think we're really bad for taking a while to warm to players, which again is understandable because of everything that's happened over the last couple of years. But then once they sort of hit a level that we're okay with, if they dare to drop under that, it is not just, oh, that's a shame. It's just, he is terrible. Get him out of here. Now, the bad thing, and what does matter with Manny Fernandez, is pretty much every game so far this season he's been at fault for a goal, which people remember a lot. Now, again, we don't necessarily think about some of the stuff that I've mentioned there. Is there a midfield in front of him? Has he had fullbacks that are capable at this side? Has he had this? Has he had that? We boil it down to 1v1s and say, you made that mistake there. That was always your mistake. It was no one else's mistake.
It's recruitment as well, Adam. The amount of people that view buying football as like buying a television, that it works exactly the same way no matter where you plug it in. Well,
yeah,
of course it doesn't. And again, go back to my point, he does not look mentally sharp, maybe head turned and all the rest of it, young footballer with maybe other options, blah blah blah. But it's all, and especially about again who we can get, what they can actually do to us. It's all chemistry. It's all how they fit with the other 10, and we just disregard this so often. And it's just total individual agency for 11 players, as if that is it. It's just duels all around the pitch and there's nothing else.
Yeah, and it's frustrating because we don't talk a lot about chemistry. We don't talk about how Fernandez's skills and strengths probably bring out the best in Macania, for example, because it allows him to go and do some of these things. It's more, he looks good, better than Fernandez, therefore Fernandez is rubbish and Macania is great, which is the on the evidence of so far this season. I have to say that that's accurate, but I think it needs to be a little bit deeper than that. How are they working together? How does the manager want them to work together? How does he want them to defend as a unit? How does he want them to interact with the goalkeeper? How does he want them to interact with the midfielders? Does he want them playing long switches of play, a la Goldson over to Ryan Kent, Borna Barisic? Does he want them doing X? Does he want them doing Y? So, yeah, I think if you look at the player in isolation, he's not anywhere near what he was for the last 6 months of last season. I think that's absolutely fair. However, I would prefer to keep Manny Fernandez around unless it's something ridiculous. You also have to ask yourself, like, without being patronising on these things, but we have to recognise that these players have skills. Otherwise, the clubs they've been linked to, that's not just noise. That some of that can be agent led. If Manny Fernandez goes to Bayer Leverkusen, I think we could recognise that in the same way that maybe Peterborough fans didn't recognise. Maybe there's something here that we're maybe not seeing. Maybe there are skills here that the right team, the right manager will be able to turn into something pretty special. So I think I always look at it in that lens, in terms of not just people in football think he's good, therefore he must be good, but I do think there are skills there. As we know, it is never enough. And I think your point about the mentality side of it, or the mental side of it, I should say, is probably the most telling for me, because he looks like he is short on confidence for whatever reason. He seemed pretty laid back last year, to the point of very laid back. Nothing really fazed him in a good way. This year, it seems like he has started the season in that way. Not even before he made some of the mistakes. It seems like he started the season in that way. Is it agents in his ear? Is it transfer window? Is it everything? You just have no idea. For someone who, like I said, has played 2 seasons of football, to be getting linked with the top end of Bundesliga and whoever else he was linked at, I think you would be lying if you said that wasn't going to be a distraction for certain players, particularly if it's something new to them. So I guess we'll need to wait and see how that one pans out. But I do think that unless it's a pretty big bid that allows us to fix a couple of positions properly, then I wouldn't be devastated to see Manny Fernandez still here when the transfer window closes for sure.
Yeah. Briefly, Adam, the other man, the goal scorer for Rangers last night, Ryan Nadiri. I know you wrestle with what he does, what he can't do, what he almost does. He is a bit of a conundrum.
He is. I'd be keen to get your thoughts on him because I see him. It's just the size thing that just confuses the life out of me. I thought that as soon as I watched him playing for Hansa Rostock. You look at the data, you look at some of the goals, and you think he was profiling as a creative second striker, if you want to say, or a number 10, who can create for others primarily, but also is able to score goals as well. Not necessarily on his own, or that it was a huge part of his play, but able to score goals as well. And then you see him and you think, you're a centre forward. Like, how can you not be a centre forward with that physical profile? I don't really understand it. And then you see him play and you think, okay, he's quite scrappy in his movements on the ball. There's not a lot of clean play. He doesn't strike the ball cleanly at all. However, those last two games, something that I said earlier on in the show, you want someone in the right place at the right time as your number 9. And Ryan Nadiri is there in both of those games to score those goals. But I do find him a bit of a conundrum because off the ball, the manager said this as well, and previous manager said it too. Off the ball, I think he's terrific. I think the way that he runs, the way that he harries, he allowed us to be solid last night because he's going and pressing on his own. So he was doing more pressing than two centre forwards probably would do for us back in Michael Beale days or whatever. And I think that is something that we don't really value too much. He will run all day. He's intelligent with it. His link-up play, I think there was a couple of good opportunities last night. His link-up play was actually quite good. It is not consistent at all. And for for £5 million, I think we probably do need a little bit more consistently. But do I think he's improving? Yes. Do I think he's the answer as the number 9 without anyone else coming in? No, I don't think so. Where would I play him? I don't know. Wide right, maybe. I don't know. Wide right as a sort of option.
This is the thing, isn't it? It goes back to that 4-3-3 thing. I mean, he's showing up and he doesn't hide, I don't think. I quite enjoyed him close to Shermity last season at times. I thought he could do a bit more of a link up than I expected. But again, so many. How are we in this position where we just don't know how to fit square pegs into square holes? The 5 million thing, I mean, that was a bit of impatience for us, really. We wanted some extra firepower in, didn't we? And well, that's what we had to pay. And a lot of, German lower leagues, that's what you get. Well, tell Celtic that, I guess, this particular summer. So yeah, I find him as confusing as you at times, Adam, I must say. Next time we speak, the transfer window may have been on. We'll see if we can get one in next week post European affairs. What do we need? What would you like?
What do we need and what do I like are two separate things. I am still really confused about the way that we've... I'm not confused about the way we've set up the midfield, I have to say. I think asking... I think that's a Derek McInnes midfield setup, if I'm honest. Like, again, for better or worse. Yes, last season he had Mark Leonard in. You can maybe say Dan Neil can do some of those things, albeit it's only a few appearances there, so that sort of tracks there. But I do think the rest of it will be box-to-box number 8s that can do a little bit of everything, aren't necessarily tempo setters or creative attack-minded goal scorers. So I don't know if another midfielder who can do those things is a huge priority for the manager. We can all want one, and I have wanted one for as long as I can remember, but I don't know if that really ties up. I don't know if it'll be high on his agenda. So for me, it needs to be 3 attackers. The 3 attackers we've been waiting on for a while, probably. Someone on the left. Gassama, I thought, was really good last night, and he was doing Gassama things. We've seen that game before from Gassama. We know that yes, he probably will get better. Yes, if he plays consistently in that role rather than being shunted about across managers, etc. Could we see a little bit more consistency with that as he gets older? Possibly. Right now, I think it would be silly to rely on that being a consistent there. So I'm not surprised with links to a left winger. Right winger, I think we absolutely need as well. Yokota, I like neat and tidy. I thought he did well for the assist last night. Probably looking for a little bit more from him longer term in terms of actual output threat in the final third, but I think there's promising signs there. And then a striker. Complicated because we hadn't planned for Chermiti to be here and not available. I don't think so. One of those situations where are we using money to bring in a centre forward that we could have been using at centre half, maybe. I'm not sure. So we'll wait and see how that transpires. But I would rather we went all out with an attack, if I'm honest, that we think we can trust, rather than trying to spread ourselves too thin and maybe trying to pick up a lone striker and a centre back that we're not quite sure is going to be amazing. I'd rather we went all out on a centre forward there personally to try and bring someone in. We do have 3 in there as well. Is that enough if we go one striker in games? Probably not. I would still like to have another one in there as well, even if it means maybe Majowski leaving, say, if he's the least fancied of the 3 or 4. So yeah, I think minimum I would like to see 3 attackers. I think if we're being greedy, I think central midfielder, absolutely, particularly if Raskin goes, and I would still like another centre half, even though maybe we'll get one towards the end of the window on a loan or something like that we can bring in another loan, hopefully, there, because I do think we're a little bit light. If we've only got Fernandez, Macania, and Godfrey, who may be injury prone, we don't know. Sterling, who is injury prone for sure. I think we're maybe a little bit light there, but yeah, I think we probably need better at the top end of the pitch. So I would say three attackers if I can, and hopefully spending a bit of money to get them in, because I think that's where we need the support. What about you?
We need players we can't get is where I am, really, just in terms of stature and what they can, as I said last week, players that can bring what we have and what we can normally afford alive, and it's always going to be the problem. These pillar players, these foundational players, without it, it's a struggle. Definitely, I can't believe we're in this situation again, where we're in what's the date, 21st August, and it still looks like an absolute mad scramble to the end. Nothing put in place early. They're like, right, okay, we can kind of work around this. There's a lot of confidence from that sign, and no big sale early. Maybe Chermiti would have been that, and there's nothing you can do about that. The Raskin thing, just given how long it has been in conversation, has just been allowed to drag on far too long. It's difficult. You're a selling club because you need a buyer that's willing to play proper ball. But I imagine that's hamstrung. There are a multitude of reasons, but it's just this sense of panic. We had it last season, and we're kind of getting used to it. We will spend money, but it's how thought through it is. Completely agree with you. The genuine pace of mind, the St Mirren, good to see some counter-attacking goals, but it's a cup tie. You're going to get that if we were playing St Mirren this weekend, for example, in that as that league game was supposed to be. You really going to have those kind of moments? Doubt it. It's the quickness of mind. It's intelligent players, and players that just give everybody that kind of belief. The striker from Portland would be an interesting one. but it's players that actually fit some kind of plan. Go back to your point. But I'm still not convinced either at central defence or in centre midfield we have the kind of stature of player that will carry Rangers through tricky times, which we are in case people haven't noticed. But we'll see.
I think as well, I agree with everything you've said there, but I tend to get a bit calmer at this point in the window for some reason, because it gets quite close to the end, and then as soon as there's a bad result in September, I go nuclear again about how badly we've attacked these windows. But I think at some point, we again, as go back to that point I mentioned there about a fly in the wall documentary, we have no idea about conversations whatsoever. However, I get not wanting to be a pushover in the transfer market. I think that's
totally
fair,
totally.
But at the detriment of actually being able to do things, I don't really get it. We are not a club with a glorious and illustrious track record of getting top dollar for our players, and then those players going on to do serviceable things at their other clubs. We have one in the last however many decades, probably. So until that point, it is irrelevant, first of all, what any other clubs get for their players, because we don't have that. That's the single most important thing outside of, are you a good player? I would rather, and I've said this for a while, I would rather we took good money when offered, and then it's a little bit like, oh, we could have got an extra 5 million for that player. I'd rather we took good money when offered rather than waiting for a lottery win. So personally, I hope that we start to do that at some point soon. I think we made mistakes with it, with Alfredo Morelos and Ryan Kent back in the day. We've probably done it again at various points. When that money can go some way to transforming your team, holding out for an extra £3-5 million that might never come seems a little bit insignificant for me personally. I don't work in the club. I don't know how balance books, balance sheets work. But if you then start to build those blocks of being a club that can consistently sell players that go on and do well, I think that's the point that you then start to becoming and saying, well, okay, if you want that player, then the minimum is £25 million or the minimum is X. I don't think we're there yet. And I think holding out for that, from someone from the outside looking in, holding out for more money than clubs are willing to pay, doesn't seem like it's going to get us anywhere, personally. So without knowing the ins and outs of anything there, could we have sold some players? I'm not going to put numbers out there because people will say, I can't believe you're saying X, Y, and Z. But throughout the course of this summer, could we have sold players for what we thought was good to okay to very decent fees that would allow us to have went and done some of that stuff earlier? Maybe. Should we have? We're not the ones that have that context to know. But I would like to see things like that happen earlier in the window to allow us to make the most of the time that we've got and try and enact plans. But we'll see. Hope springs eternal.
Well, indeed, it's realism, right? It's exactly that. Especially if you know this player doesn't fit, he might fit somewhere else and be great value for money. So yeah,
and more often than not, probably this player would like to leave as well.
Well, indeed. A wee look back just before we finish. 27 years ago right now, Rangers had played 2 league games, and the joke was, what is the difference between a triangle and Rangers? A triangle has 3 points because Rangers had lost their first 2 league games in catastrophic fashion. Chris Woods was out. People think that Bonnie Ginsberg was kind of rushed in. He was already there, actually, but he had a dreadful league debut against Hibs, Easter Road, and everything's going tonto. For anyone who doesn't know, Rangers had won the league, then came nowhere, then won the league, and there's this kind of sense that this is just how it's all going to be. But Graham Souness and Walt Smith were very uncharacteristically relaxed, which I think is quite important, and just very assured that it will happen. Maurice Johnson will score and everything will be fine. Ultimately, that is the case. They kept faith with the best squad in the country. But 2 points for a win, and the fact that 5 or 6 genuinely decent Premier League teams would cut each other's legs off all the time meant that there was that scope for a bad start, a slow start, that you can get into gear. But yeah, it's not always been rosy. There have been plenty of poor starts to league titles that have come good. And even the last few years, I suppose, utterly awful starts with managers being punted, and we found ourselves top of the league in the spring at some points. But it's all relative to the opposition and the competition. So, yeah, we'll see what the next couple of weeks bring. Thanks, Adam.
Thank you.
Enjoy your weekend off, listeners, and we'll speak to you soon. Bye for now.